really focusing on one area in our industry, technology, and having the guts to speak out. And even if it's provocative, even if some people don't like it, just go for it and say what you have to say.
Hello, friends, and welcome to a new episode of Merging Minds, the podcast brought to you by BureauWorks, the AI-powered TMS. Today, as every day, and in every podcast that I can record, I am overexcited. I'm super happy to be bringing you today Jourik, one of the top technology voices in our industry, a millennial leader, a super cool dude. We share some common connections, and he came here today to give his perspectives on life, leadership, technology, the localization industry. Okay, Jourik, please introduce yourself. Hi, man.
Javi, hello there. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. You're so alive and kicking. You're so full of energy. So this is going to be very nice. So yeah, I'm Jourik Ciesielski. I'm based in Belgium, despite the Polish surname. I'm 100% Belgian. I wear a couple of hats in our industry, so it's not limited to one position or one responsibility. I'm the CTO for Yamagata Europe, mid-sized LSP based in Belgium. Amazing company. I think we're doing a very good job in several areas. I'm also the co-founder and the owner of CJ International, my own little side hustle. And under the umbrella of my own company, I try to provide three services, which is technology consulting, so helping companies implement technologies, optimize technologies, engineering and small developments, and finally market research, another discipline I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. As I said, my friend, been following your advances. I've been reading all the posts that you do on LinkedIn, your newsletter. I've attended some of the webinars you do. You became in the last 5 years one of the top tech voices around technology innovation in the localization industry, and also one of, I would say, and of course you can say no, 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 but I would say one of the thought leaders of the industry. And like when I was preparing for this interview, I said I would like to have the next episode. I would like to have in the next episode a conversation with somebody that's like in the same generation as I am, that is a millennial, that is like, hey, starting to lead. Because I've always presented it this way, millennials, we are like the forgotten generation. I've always said, like the ones that were promised the moon, and we had to suffer more than anybody. But now it's the moment in which we are taking over, right? It's the moment where you see a lot of VPs that are in our generation. It's the moment that you see a lot of directors. It's the moment that you see a lot of founders like us, right? So I think it's the moment in which we start shining. So my first question to you, as a thought leader, as I consider you a thought leader and a leader in teams, etc., is there a way you could define the differences between the normal leadership that we grew up with to what we're doing today? Like, how would you define millennial leadership?
That's a very good question. Well, I think right now we are in a situation where so much is happening, and every day there's something new that is going to change the world, and it can be about technology, but it can be about other things as well. So it's really very difficult to keep up for the older generations, but even for us, it's very difficult to keep track of everything that's going on. But I think if you're young, if you're in this generation and you really focus on one or a couple of areas that you're very interested in, and you really try to become the best one or among the best ones in that specific area, you have like a very good asset to become a thought leader, or someone with a very important position within an industry. If I mirror this to myself, I've been in localization now for 12 years, and I realized from day one that localization or translation is like 75-80% about technology, and only a small percentage of everything that we do is actual linguistic work. And I kind of found that out rather quickly. And I also had this itch of always wanting to know how something works. I'm not satisfied if I know that something works. I need to know how it works. So that was a thing I had always on my mind. Today, I think I reached the point where I can say that I understand translation technology very well, or rather well. And I'm on LinkedIn, as you mentioned. I dare to post about it. I dare to share opinions about it, even if they are sharp or even if they are provocative. So
Yes.
I think that's like a good combination for people in our generation to pick up important positions, be thought leaders. I think that's what worked for me. So really focusing on one area in our industry, technology, and having the guts to speak out, and even if it's provocative, even if some people don't like it, just go for it and say what you have to say.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with you. On top of that, I would add, like, how to use the communication channels, social media, let's say nowadays, in a way that matches the way you are. Right? You're not a different person behind that. Like, you're being yourself there, and that counts a lot. Whenever I see you share ideas, whenever I see you share your opinions on technology, whatever, you don't start by "I'm humbled to say," "I'm honored to say," whatever, those things
Exactly.
like that. Like, it's you, and that makes you become certainly a thought leader, and certainly a voice to hear too, and that attracts wealth, that attracts clients for you, that attracts gigs at conferences, etc., etc., etc. And I think we should be doing this more, and not everybody does this a lot, right? I have a question.
Yeah.
It's making me think as well, like, in order to get there, to get to where we are, and I always say, and I always defined the moment of our careers, like, let's divide our journey in three parts: the part in which you learn, the part in which you always constantly learning but you apply, and the part in which you have continued learning, you have applied, and you're seeing the end, let's say that. And I would describe the part where we are, like, we're at the beginning of phase number two, right? But to get to phase number two, we faced a ton of challenges. Like, I can think of, like, to me, one of the challenges, the biggest challenges I have faced, is instability. Like, someday you have this, the next day, oh my god, I got here, and then boom, you fall down. Like, our parents used to have this kind of work or jobs that they will be working for the same company 15, 16 years, or you had it also, but most of us don't, right? So I could think instability as a challenge that we have to face. What would be some of the challenges that you could think of that
Yeah.
you have to face to get to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, instability is definitely one of the factors. For me, it's like I voluntarily combine a lot of things. I have a full-time position and I'm running my company, so I'm like, okay, you know what? You're going to have a hard time, but you should not complain about it because it's your decision to do it that way. And I try to live by that statement. You should not complain, right? And I think that's a very important one. So sometimes I'm like, sick and tired of the things that I have on my plate, and, a deadline here and an urgent thing there and an unexpected thing here. And then the kids start to make my life a living hell. And then there's something in the family and I need to drop out and do this. But I always, in the end, in the evening when I shut down my computer, I always repeat the same thing to me. You should not complain. And it actually works for me, and then it's Thursday or Friday and I'm like, okay, the weekend is there. I have a beer with my friends. I, go out and play football and I have a good time. And I'm like, look, it's all worth it. So I think it's all in the mind. Challenges,
Mhm.
there will always be challenges, and yes, you will need to work hard, and yes, there will be days where things don't go as you would like them to go. But for me, it's like always repeating that one very important sentence: you should not complain.
Welcome. I love it. I love it. And I am with you 100%. I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, I did a presentation in one of these first online conferences. And I swear, on the first bullet point, as how would you do the things I'm doing? Do never complain. And it's awesome,
There
man. And,
you
like,
go.
it's
There you
incredible
go.
because, yeah, what you've always hear, and this is not a critic, it's just an observation, right? Like, a lot of the conversations you have with people our age or other generations, oh fuck, I hate this thing, I hate this thing. It's like, I would present that in a different way. It's like, I'm not comfortable with this, and I try to, whenever there's a challenge, and just try to not complain and go after it, right? That's what I've been doing. I know there's a lot of issues that can happen at the same time, like mental health status or whatever, that can make you
Oh, yeah.
complain or whatever. But I would live with the same attitude as you're doing it, man. So that's great that you share these things. I have another thing that I thought of asking you. And it's about, like,
Mhm.
you lead your own company, you lead teams. As a millennial leader, how do you manage to lead a multi-generational team? Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever. No, pandemic
Yeah.
is too early, but, wow, give us some tips on how to do that. How do you do this?
Yeah. Good question. And it's not like I apply, like specific techniques to get along with people from that generation or people from that team. I think I just try to be myself, and that sounds very cliche. But again, I mean, I think that you should create the appropriate expectations towards your team. Your team should know what they can count on you for and what they can expect from you. And if you manage to do that, they will automatically knock on your door with a very specific problem. They will not waste your time. They will know, okay, I have this problem. Now is the time to talk to Jourik. And I think that's like an important thing. You should, everybody should know who you are and what you stand for and what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And I think that really contributes to having like a good collaboration, a good dynamic within the team. So that would probably be my answer. Make sure that people know who you are, what you stand for, and what they can count on you for. And I think if you manage to do that, things will like flow naturally and people will do what they're supposed to do without your supervision, but knock on your door whenever they
Mhm.
really need you.
Mhm. That's great. Setting the expectations. I think that's incredibly important as well. But I have a like this makes me think. I think us like everybody should, but especially us, we are flexible. We have to be flexible people. Like we're flexible because we've been promised this, we got the other thing, we lived in this situation, we didn't have stability, whatever. In the case that you're mentioning, would you set expectations? How do you manage when the expectations change around the journey? Like okay, I told this guy that he should be doing this because the team needs him for that, but now I need to tell him a different thing. Is that very controversial for you to change the direction of where you're going?
Yeah.
It's a very
So
philosophical question, but I
yeah,
don't know.
it's a difficult question, and we're having this conversation here, and we're
Yes.
we're making we're making it sound as if everything was beautiful. Not
No, it's
everything
not.
is beautiful, and
No, it's not.
sometimes things go wrong, and it can be an internal process with one of your stakeholders. It can be a client-facing process, but things don't go like you would want them to go. And if that happens to me, and it happens all the time to me, I first of all try to make sure that we should not block the ongoing process or, start again or whatever. I just try to carry on and make sure that we deliver whatever needs to be delivered. But of course, that painful process needs to be followed by at least some kind of evaluation like, hey guys, look, we made a mess out of it, or this didn't go exactly according to plan. What went wrong and what do we need to do in order to avoid this in the near future? And I think having that kind of conversation, like, okay, we need to prepare that quote better next time, or we need to do more regular meetings, or this or that. I think that's very important. So first of all, I would say make sure that the show can go on, make sure that the show
Uh-huh.
doesn't stop, but have like very thorough evaluations if something went wrong, and make sure that you can avoid the things that went wrong in upcoming things.
I love it. So if you're listening to this and you're leading teams, make sure you're flexible, make sure you communicate all those changes. It's gonna help. I think it's gonna help the flow. Like one of the things I like about what we're doing at BureauWorks is precisely how we are evolving the roles, how we've changed. Hey, this didn't work. Okay, then there's a call. Like, dude, I like it. I understand it's also complicated in organizations that are bigger than that are smaller,
Of course.
but I believe also as well that the attitude of a leader is what makes the difference, right? And even though it's like a Microsoft or an Apple, or it's a smaller BureauWorks or other company out there, right? So
Totally.
uh,
Absolutely.
I'm enjoying the conversation with you like really a lot. I wish we could do this with having a beer, my friend. Like it would be like we would
That
solve
will
all
be
the world's.
amazing.
That would be amazing, right? And I wanna tackle now a little bit because I thought like I have an opportunity to bring to our audience one of the most well versed people in our industry about technology processes, etc. You know all the TMSs, you know the impact of AI that is having there. That's your expertise, right? So my first question to you, and I read your post, your newsletter, and everything. You've been recently. You wrote about how lots of technology providers out there and their products are getting a bit obsolete. Not ours, because I remember you said that. But you had a very good point on that. And I wanted to, since I have you here today, I wanted to ask you, why do you think like that? Why do you think that? What's disappointing you about the
All
current
right.
state of?
I could talk about this for hours, you know that.
I'm gonna give you three
So,
minutes, bro.
well, First of all, I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at it from a distance, the first very important conclusion is that many of the technologies and processes that we are applying in localization haven't changed in 30 years. The first cat tool was released in the 1980s. A cat tool, a tool where you upload a document, get segmented source next to target, and then you translate with the aid of a translation memory in a term base, that is still out there. That hasn't changed. And that's the first problem. If something hasn't changed in more than 30 years, either it's super solid or it's obsolete, right?
Yeah.
You could argue and say that it's super solid, but we've had other problems. People are not very enthusiastic about machine translation. Buyers are because of the obvious reasons. Linguists aren't for other obvious reasons, which means that it's not so super solid. Which means that it's actually time for us as an industry, sorry, to question what is going on. And this process of questioning what is going on has been accelerated by the rise of LLMs, because LLMs, large language models, they're brand new and they're really, changing everything very quickly. The thing with LLMs is that we are not used to working with that kind of technology. We are used to working with technologies where something goes in and something comes out. Machine translation, text to speech, speech to text. Now we have those very versatile models that can do literally everything, but not off the shelf. You have
Mhm.
to build that use case yourself. You have to talk to that model. You have to customize that model with whatever customization technique you would like to apply. You need to provide context to that model. You need to provide instructions to that model. You have some work to do if you really want to work with a model and get the very best out of it. That requires expertise, that requires skills, that requires investment. And we are not ready for it as an industry, or not as ready as we should be to really get the very best out of those models.
It's super
And
interesting.
then
And
to
sorry.
answer your question,
Yeah, yeah.
then to answer your question, sorry, then I look at TMS, they were caught by surprise because all of a sudden we have these new models and they can do a lot more than what we're used to. And the very first thing that they do is, okay, we'll communicate with the translation memory. Fine, there's definitely some value in it, but we should not limit ourselves to communicating with translation memories, because those models benefit from other things: visual context, length limitations, etc., and so on. The thing is, as long as we limit ourselves to what we know and love and used to, we will not be able to get the very best out of those models.
It's super interesting, mate, that you bring this up right now when I ask you this thing. Like a few days ago, I was traveling in the United States and I attended an event in Seattle in which people from Microsoft gathered up to people from globalization and AI departments in Microsoft gathered in one of the events and they spoke about the future of localization jobs. It was super interesting because the whole conversation started by laying the land, no, and saying like, hey, like what is some of the problems we have now? We still translate like from a source to a target when we could be doing this in a whole different way. What's the
Yeah,
problem in this? This is impacting. This is being changed by LLMs, as you say, and jobs are affected. So like they were naming jobs like AI quality researcher, AI quality program manager. That I don't remember the exact name. AI prompt engineer, things like that, things that do not exist right now, but that are in the brains of those big companies leading and that are
yeah,
the big ones that can just, I think change comes from all sizes, right? Can come from down, from below, like I think as we're doing in BureauWorks, or it can come up from above, right? From the clients who are pushing you to do this. It was very interesting to
hmm
hear. I wish you would have been there to talk about, to see this, man.
yeah,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought of and you have very clear visions on what's happening right now and a little bit on the future. And since I mentioned this thing about the roles that are coming up, what do you think is going to be so to say? What role should human linguists play in this AI driven localization world? Since we're talking about jobs, etc. What do you think is going to be in 10 years?
Yeah.
You're
So,
celebrating your 12th in the industry, and I'm celebrating my 10th. So
yeah,
when we get to
look,
50.
yeah, look, things are going to change. That's for sure. And especially, the role of the human linguist is going to change. First of all, let's make something very clear. We will always need humans, right? I'm not the kind of person that will say, look, we will be able to translate those content types exclusively with MT. No, I don't believe that. I think we will always need the human sign off, the human validation in a project. However, and this is also, a little bit circling back to what I said, that we have
Mhm.
this new technology and it can do everything. And the interesting thing is that the kind of instructions and reference materials that we typically give to human linguists can now also be provided to models, to machine learning models. Sounds like a danger, sounds like a threat. I don't really agree. I think it's really, a very nice complement, a very nice addition to humans. We've traditionally been in the man versus machine debate. It's either MT or humans, but not both, and this and that. I think now we have the necessary resources to move towards a man and machine
Mhm.
scenario where both of them like work together and produce more content, more volumes at a faster pace. What does that mean for the human linguist? Yes, I think that human linguists will, shift from uh, content generation to content editing and content sign off or content validation. I think that's going to be one of the logical consequences of everything that's happening with technology that is evolving and maturing. But I do want to add to this that, you mentioned AI quality program managers and new roles being created. I don't really believe in that. I think that the CTO has the capabilities of building and leading an AI program. And I think that even linguists can actively participate, crafting prompts and creating references and this and that. So, new roles, yes, but I think those roles will be filled by humans,
Yes, definitely.
with the typical interests and expertises.
I agree with you. I believe that as well. And you know what I'm liking about the our chat right now is that you're coming in with very fresh ideas, with an open mind, a flexible mentality to what's coming up, and you know what, a very salesy mentality as well. Because at the end, you are, yeah, you have to sell. You have to sell those ideas to your clients, right? Have you seen some of what are the biggest blockers that you say, like, hey, that's not going to work? You're doing things like in 1995, right, or whatever, or 1999, like Prince's song, whatever, right? Like, what are some of the blocks that you're seeing there to advance in our industry nowadays when you talk to your clients as a C-level executive?
Yeah. So I think that you kind of mentioned it already, the 1995 mentality. What I often see is that clients are like rusted in their old processes and their old technologies, and they're dying to move away from them, and they're dying to implement something new, and they're dying to do something with AI, but they simply can't because management doesn't allow them, or their IT department doesn't allow them to do something with AI or whatever. So there's a lot of interest and a lot of excitement about doing it, but often there are blockers on the road. And then of course it's like, as you said, the sales mentality needs to come up then and needs to really show the added value of doing things differently. I try to do that. I think I can be really convincing if I want. When I'm convinced of something, I go for it, and no one is gonna hold me back. And I also
Yes.
have that mentality when talking to prospects and clients.
I
I'm
think we should
super
also
excited. Yeah,
so just one thing to add to that, and it's
of
beautiful, and
course,
I praise that, and I think it's like one of our missions as millennials, as leaders, whatever. I think we should we should create the space for people to be salesy as well, like, because a lot of people, they're like, no, sales is not for me. I don't want to do this. And if you cannot, quote unquote, push ideas through, then you're
of
fucked,
course,
basically.
of course. You need to have some kind of convincing power if you want to do business. That's exactly it. So I kind of like try to generate some interest and let people know, like, hey, we are dealing with this new technology, and I can tell you that a lot is possible with this new technology. It generates some interest, but at the same time I always try to manage expectations from day one. Like, it's going to make your life a lot easier, and yes, you will make, or you will be able to produce more content at a faster pace and maybe push the price a little bit. But the human is still out there, and we will always need them, and it will not be perfect. Don't have the expectations of it being perfect, because that's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
convincing, but with the correct expectations.
And what do you think is now the most overhyped trend in localization? What do you think it is?
Okay. Um,
I'm shooting a lot of difficult questions, brother. So
no, no, no. So look, overhyped is one thing. I'm going to give you an answer.
yes.
Overhyped, according to me right now, multilingual content creation. So I'm seeing so many people talking about, oh, but now we can use an LLM to create content from the start. And you know what? That's very true. An LLM has the power to do that and has the capabilities of doing that
Mhm.
with the right touches of customization and instructions and references. Yet, I don't see a lot of people or a lot of companies really taking the step and moving away from traditional source to target localization towards a multilingual content creation model. So, right now at this point, it sounds to me still like a little bit of a marketing stunt, which doesn't mean that I don't believe in it. But to answer your
Mhm.
question, overhyped right now, I would say multilingual content creation. So, multilingual content creation from the start.
Yeah. And if you could change something right now, you say like, hey, I wake up today, I want to change this thing because it doesn't work. What would it be in our world? I know you would change
Uh,
some of the TMSs out there, but give me something else. What else would you change?
um,
Oh, this is horrible. Like, how can we still be doing this 30 years after or something like, I don't know, man. You tell me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So the answer to that question would be QA, traditional QA. I hate it. I find it awful. It generates so many false positives, and then a human needs to fight his or her way through all those false positives to hopefully find one real mistake whose impact would be very, very low if it was left unidentified. So the answer to that question was QA. If I do something with QA, I always ask myself the question, what the fuck am I doing? Really?
Hey, managers, talk to Yurik. I love it. I love
Totally.
it, and I love how brave you are to express it because it's good. It's like it's not hurting anybody. It's like we want to make people think. And how can you make your job more productive and better? Like at the end, we want you to make more money, and if you want to make more money, you need to come up with different ways of doing things, right? So I am happy you
Yeah.
point that these things out, Judith. So yeah, 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 yeah.
I
Eh,
repeated the
yeah.
QA thing a lot of times in many presentations, and people, for some reason, always start applauding when I say that. We should stop doing QA the way we're doing it right now. So I guess people agree with that.
Yeah. I want to ask you a couple of more questions, and let's leave that more technological and process and jobs conversation aside. Because I've
Sure.
been enjoying. We could be talking here for another hour, my friend. But I want to ask you
Totally.
because I thought of I thought of one thing. Like is it true that we, as a generation, we prioritize purpose over profit? Is that Do you think that's happening? It's like, no, no, I'm good, but I'm doing less money than I could be doing. True is that?
Yeah.
Is it that woke thing or what?
I mean, maybe yes. So I don't want to make any strong statements here, but
Yeah.
maybe. So I sometimes feel that, whenever we are on social media and we generate traffic and we generate, likes and interest, that we're like, okay, we have achieved what we wanted to achieve. Of course, that's not what business is about. And, that part of the business being there and being visible, that is one thing, but it's a means to conduct business. And I think that some people, especially in our generation, might often forget that. But again, I'm not here to make any strong statements
No,
about
no, I get it. I get it. It's beautiful to have those ideals, but at the end, you want to have your millennial PlayStation, your millennial whatever things, or pay whatever things for your kids, right? So, hey, careful,
totally.
right?
Yeah, of course, of
I
course.
I get it, man. And there's another idea that I think it's also like very uh, much into the brain of every millennial nowadays, and is that we reject corporate hierarchy in favor of collaboration. And I know this is a deeper conversation, especially after the things we've spoken about leadership. Do you think that really works?
Honestly, no. So, but that's of course a personal opinion. I mean, in a way, so I'm in a twofold situation. I work for a company where I'm reporting to a boss, and I'm working in a company where I am the boss. But still, within my company, I have a lot of respect from my boss, and I don't have a problem with the fact that I need to report to someone. It's like, in a way, you also get acknowledgement in a hierarchy, and there's nothing wrong with that. And even in the other situation, in the other scenario where I am the boss, when I work with people, when I hire someone to work on a project with me, I like to give that people, also some, authority and autonomy, and give freedom to those people to do whatever they're good at. And I don't want to be the boss, either. So I think there's nothing wrong with hierarchy, but of course, we're not talking about dictatorship here. We're talking about
Yes, that's
healthy healthy hierarchy.
the
That's what we're
hierarchy.
talking
I get
about.
it.
Yeah.
It was a very philosophical question as well, and I think there's no
Yeah.
real like answers, whatever you like. But I
Of
wanted to get
course.
your opinion on this because
Yeah,
I also
absolutely.
believe that there's always got to be I think what we are changing as a generation is the fact of like, hey, more collaborative, and we've we've lived the 90s, and especially me that I'm a bit older than you, and I've seen what the 90s was about, like in football, which you said, in the relationship between women and men, in at
Yeah.
work, and all that stuff. That's completely different. We are the generation that has to bring back that has to live over those principles without becoming a woke, but with the heart and the soul to do that, right? And I think that's where we are trying to make a difference, at least some of the millennial leaders that I know, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's
uh,
that's very interesting to know. And I just got
yeah.
one more question for you, buddy, and it's like, I love it because I participate sometimes in the Monterrey Institute classes. I've been invited a couple of times to talk there, and it's beautiful. I'm always invited there as a guest to come and speak about what I'm doing. And I love it. I love it. Most of the students there are always younger than me, people in their 20s, uh, starting their careers, or getting some more formation to start in their careers, right? And
Yeah.
imagine you were one of those students, and you have somebody like me, a crazy Spanish traveling around the world, that you could ask him some questions about, hey, what does my future entail? What's coming up? How can you give me some advice? Can you give those people that are coming behind us generationally some advice?
Yeah, and I think, my advice would be like the answer to the first question. So first of all, know your shit. Know what you're doing. Know what you're talking about. Don't be that kind of guy or girl who guesses and assumes. Assumes makes an ass out of you and me. And that's totally true. Don't assume. Do your homework. Make sure that you're among the best, uh, in your field, in your area. And I mean, you should not be the best. You should be the best possible version of yourself. That's important. Don't try to be the best, because that implies that you want to be better than anyone else. Don't do that. Just try to be the best version of yourself. Know what you're talking about, and dare to talk. I think that's like that's like the best piece of advice I can give. Don't be afraid to talk. If you have an opinion, share it in a respectful way. Don't try to offend other people. But if you have a sharp opinion, you should share it. And people may disagree, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with civil disagreement. So I think that would be it. Know what you're talking about, specialize, and dare to talk, dare to speak. That would be my advice.
Keep learning as well. Like my friend Anna Schlegel came on the podcast last a few weeks ago and she said, like, you need to keep learning. I love it. I love it, Judy. And I get your point on this. Sometimes by personality, it's difficult to express your ideas because it's like, hey, there's some personalities, and I lived through this. It's like you don't know how to say no, and it's very difficult to say no. So expressing ideas could be difficult, but by my experience, there's nothing more beautiful than saying like for the first time, "Fuck it, no," in a respectful way, and changing, and with a mindset of changing things and making things work better. So thanks for sharing that, my friend. That's great. I don't want to take any more of your time. It's a pleasure to have you here. Like my goal of the year is to finally get to meet you in person, have those beers that we owe each other, and keep growing and keep being you, my friend. Thank you so much for being the podcast today.
We'll make that happen. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, Javi.
Cheers, brother. See you very soon. Bye bye to everyone listening. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Until the next episode. Bye.